All right, guys, today's video is going to be different. Today's video is a focus of understanding what the seed bags you're purchasing claim to be, and maybe why or why not you're hitting those marks, and to kind of help you understand the way plants work and why I keep doing these videos, to help you understand what you're planting and to help get you closer to what the bags say. And this can tick a lot of people off, especially either first time planters, or if you're kind of not an advanced planter but fall in that mid-range area of an average planter. You just want to plant something, fertilize, and want it to do well. So this is one thing I want you to understand. There's a lot of things here that can determine your protein levels. So I'm going to use an example, and let's say I go out to just some random store and see the area where the seeds are displayed to purchase. A lot of times those type of seeds in those type of venues will have a picture of a monster buck on them or two to draw you in to look at their product. And then for those that are marketing more and more, they will list the protein percentage on the bag. So let's say that you want to plant a clover plot, and it doesn't matter if it's crimson, ladino, just a clover plot. You go out to that store, you see a bag that has that nice big old buck on it, and you purchase that particular seed, and then the bag says on the front 36% protein. Some of the companies have worded it a little bit better now. They've added the words up to, but some don't. They just say 36%. They might say 32, 33, whatever they call out on the bag. You go out, you plant that, and then you think to yourself, man alive, I'm going to pump out 36% protein to these deer. I'm going to grow some beef. Well, there's a little misconception here that we need to understand, and there are many, many factors that determine if you can get to that 36% level or not. So you need to be aware that there are many inhibitors that will prevent you from getting there. So for those of you that are in soil like what I've been dealing with, and it's poor soil, although this is not nowhere near as poor as it used to be, but let's say you're starting off with really bad ground, you're having a hard time getting plots to succeed, which is how I started off, and you plant something like that clover, and it comes up and it grows pretty either rough or maybe has patches of decent clover in it, and then you go look at the leaves, because you're kind of already disappointed that you're not getting the coverage that you want. So if you're basing it off of what the ground provides, you're going to get different color leaves, which is the big reason why I did these reading plants videos and helping you understand all these pros and cons. That's what I'm trying to help you understand, the plants you are actually setting in your plot. Now, granted, I don't have all the information. I'm still learning. There's things that one company can claim, and then research rebukes that claim. So sometimes I have to make corrections to myself if I feel that's warranted, and I have no issue at all doing that. But in this particular case, on this segment of this video, I'm going to show you leaf color again. So let's look at this leaf. Now, there's all kinds of pests in here, and I'll talk about that here too. So let's say that you pretend this is a clover plant, okay? I know this is soybean, but pretend it's clover. And let's say you've got color like that. You think to yourself, man, I'm doing really good. Things are working out great. So then you get more serious. You want to do a tissue test on these plants to determine how well you're doing. So remember, if the bag said 36% and you have poor soil, you're going to go back, send that sample off, and it's going to come back and say, Well, your protein level is really more like 14 to 16%. Your trace minerals are either very, very low or hardly non-existent type thing. And you're going to be like, well, wait a minute, I was supposed to be getting 36%. If you view those bags as the word potential, that should change your outlook on seed companies. You have to do a lot of work to get to that 36% mark. And yes, that means they've had to repeatedly tissue test these plants and find what the average protein was provided on really good soil. Not bad soil, really good soil. So those type of companies will throw everything at these plants, fertilizer wise, and try to make sure that there's no rocks in their soil. They want soft dirt. You know, you're trying to get mass root production to pump the plants. And then when they get all their tests back, that's why they put it on the bag and say 36%. And I have worked my tail off trying to get these plants to produce at that level. And because of budget restrictions, it's taken me, you know, several years to achieve something that I'm actually happy to look at. This is now its third straight year of having a much better color and size to the plants than what I've had in any previous food plot. But I kept working at it and working, and now my protein levels are at a totally different level than when I started this food plot project. So if you want to see what year, let me think here, I believe it was year 2 of my food plotting. I could be wrong, but it could be year 2. If you want to, go look at my very first video I ever posted on here, and it's the yearling picture of Mr. Clean. It's a trail cam video just of him, just one video, 1 minute long, and he's eating in my soybean. I want you to look at that soybean and you compare it to what you're seeing right now. Okay? You'll see what I'm talking about when it comes to protein production, tonnage production, pod production. Every plant in here is skyrocketed compared to what Mr. Clean was eating, and he's still got to be a large buck for here. So now these new babies are coming along with this to eat. Much better protein. And I had me an example of, well, I can't find it. But let me do this. So leaf color is important, right? So let's pretend that's your clover plant. Which one's producing better quality protein? It's going to be this guy. The green level in your plants indicates protein production. So the deeper the green, the better off you are. And if you have issues getting green leaves, there are multiple things that can prevent you from getting to that goal of whatever bag of seeds you purchase. So for instance, kind of bring this back down to the right plants now. This soybean is a mix of large lad, big fellow, and about 3 different vining soybeans. That's what this whole mix is down through here. The large lad has claims of up to 36% protein in their leaves. The big fellow, which is their king of protein production right now, has claims of 42% protein. So is this plot producing at a clip on the big fellow at a rate of 42%? I'll let you look at that and determine, do you think I'm hitting 42%? And I'll go ahead and tell you, if you need to pause the video, do so. The answer to that is absolutely not. I believe I am somewhere in the low 30s right now. I might have a few spots in here that might push 33%, maybe. but that would probably be my top end. And it's going to be very difficult for me to continue to press that margin higher, higher, and higher. Although I'm slowly getting better returns by just how these plants are growing, but the percentage is going to have to creep along. So what is the other factor that plays into the bag versus what you get? The rocks in my soil have really inhibited plant roots. That's why you've seen rock picking videos. I have just went to town for years in here removing rocks. A lot of rocks. Matter of fact, starting where this chestnut tree is, this ditch that runs down to the creek used to be 6, 7, and in one place maybe 8 feet deep in there. I have filled that whole ditch full of rocks and covered it with dirt, and now it's part of the hayfield. And you cannot tell there was a deep washout ditch in there. That is how many rocks I have picked out of here, and it goes all the way down. See where that gate is way down there? But just picture it over here straight behind all this brush. That's the length and the amount of rocks I stuck in that ditch. There's also rock piles scattered all around the wood line of where I've removed additional rocks. I've also taken rocks and given them to neighbors that needed to fix their driveways. So I have no issue farming rocks. And by removing some of these, especially the really big ones, I have opened up much more root space to help these plants pump more protein. Now here's the other factor too, trace minerals. You want to know why I'm harping on trace minerals? Go back and look at my videos. I put out sulfur and manganese. I also bought the 196 pounds worth of trace minerals. That's 70 different ones. Not all of them are needed, but vast majority of them are. And look at how dark green my leaves have gotten. Trace minerals are playing a valuable role in protein production. Not all of them do, okay? Some of them only help a small percentage of your protein. Others help greatly. So one particular trace mineral that helps greatly is, wink wink, sulfur. Why do you think I've been adding manganese and sulfur in here when I know that those levels are not adequate? And bang, here we go. It is off to the races. The leaves have darkened up tremendously. Holes are beginning to vanish very quickly. I used a much higher amount this time. I'm finding leaves that are now perfect or very, very close to perfect. Right, that's still much better than something like this, or some Swiss cheese that's hanging around in there. That's what these leaves look like. So I'm gaining tonnage back. So if deer's eating that leaf, they're missing out on this. That adds up over time. So by fixing these trace minerals, I am fixing protein levels, pushing them harder than I ever have. I'm also pushing plant growth. I'm pushing the plants for this type of soil that I have. And I've also want to note here the P and K level here. I don't think it's at what you consider an excellent level. I think it's somewhere in the adequate stage, mid to upper end of adequate. There's a few spots in here that's kind of towing the line, I think, and that's one of them right here, is that spot, as far as the poorer end of section 3. But I believe it is adequate. Can it be higher than what I've got it? Absolutely. So that means you would have even bigger plants, faster growing plants. So this plot will continue to improve as long as I can continue to add to those levels. That means all this other stuff, your manganese, sulfur, once you raise that up, you're going to be happy on your protein end. Now, here's the other thing that affects protein is, of course, like I mentioned, the rocks, but the tilling method that I do inhibits protein. That's why the people that do the no-till have better results on their deer. like I said, when I did my tilling versus no-till video, the name of the game is roots. And when I till, I'm trying my darn best to keep out of this soil. I try to skim that first inch or so and keep it as light as I possibly can. This is the first year I am seeing the ground finally relent of that hard pan in here. I found all kinds of roots that are turning straight down, growing straight down. They don't have that J root. It's almost completely gone. There's still a few J roots I have found in here, but they're just not near as many. Used to, it was every plant. Now it's not. So I have reduced another negative toward protein production. Now, here's the other thing I want to get into, since I've done a lengthy topic here on the protein claim on a bag. Let's get to the other part that can really tick you off, especially if you're a beginner. If you're an advanced food plotter, you already know this information, but bag companies can be deceiving and prey upon people that don't have enough knowledge. Now, I'm not knocking, don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking anybody here. I'm just trying to tell you what they're doing to you. But if you don't have plant knowledge of what you're actually sticking out, they can waste your money. So for instance, I started off in the novice area, although I do have, I had experience growing competition as a kid, so I did have some footing to start somewhere. But when it come to picking plants, that was my limitation. I didn't understand that at the time when I put ryegrass in here the first time, that was a horrible mistake. Ryegrass is a starvation plant. So when I had my food plot out here, it had clover, some turnips, ryegrass, a little bit of wheat, and that was basically about it at the time. And that wasn't a big enough diversity to me for nothing. But anyway, the ryegrass lowered, excuse me, greatly lowered my food plot attraction, because deer didn't want it. They wanted the clover, they wanted the wheat, and they didn't really like my turnips. So I had reduced food in here. I had a vast majority of the plants, which was dominantly ryegrass. I think the bag said roughly around 23% and some change that was ryegrass. Well, when you looked at how it grew, it looked like 80% of it was ryegrass. So sometimes the germination rates of different plants, especially the ones you don't want, can burn you, and that's what happened to me. So I learned from that mistake, and that's what I hope people start doing, is learning from that mistake, and don't just keep sticking out plants that are not good to your deer or as good. Now granted, yes, deer will eat ryegrass, but it is literally on the low end of the totem pole. You might as well watch them feed in your field. It's just not that good of a grass to have, period, in my opinion. So I started studying different plants. I started learning plant development, what can cause great growing plants or plants to suffer and die. And of course, my ground hit every check box just about for killing plants, or at least stunting them to where they couldn't perform worth a dime. So if you are new to that, you read that bag, you saw the 36% protein, you get fooled by the ryegrass, and you come to learn that was wrong, you're going to be mad at that seed company. And in theory, you should be, at least on the ryegrass end, but at the same time, you went out and purchased it. If you want them to stop putting that in there, don't buy the ryegrass, and they will change their mixes when they can't sell them anymore. So get stuff with winter wheat, cereal rye, oats. I learned a whole lot to get me to the point you see me now. And it took time to do this. It's not something that can happen overnight, although the more time you have to study, the faster you can try to turn things around. So if you have an issue like I did with rocks and bad soil, you need to learn the how to raise the nutrition of your plants to hit that 36% protein. That is through diversity. If you have to add, fertilizer, soil test, there's a number of things that go into getting what you want. And once you learn how hard it is to achieve some of these goals, I think you would have a much greater respect when you see your food plot performing anywhere close to where you want it. I mean, these plants here are absolutely pumping some protein. That is some super dark green leaves. These new leaves, and if you go back and look at my how to read plants, the basics video, where I talked about leaf color being a problem with a lot of these areas up here, and that's because a lot of it was trace mineral oriented. But would you say that that green color in this brand new leaf is 10 times better than any of that baby soybean that I showed you in the video? I think so. So there's plenty of room for improvement as far as my germination goes. So that kind of shows you the different aspects of food plotting for those of you that prefer to amend the soil first, which I recommend, or you go this route and put a little bit of a plant inhibitor on here because your soil ain't top notch. And then you work your way up, which is what I've kind of done with this food plot. So again, seed companies can catch a bad rap at times, and some of it is valid and some of it is not. But if you're wanting to avoid that type of mistake, I would recommend finding companies that are clean seeded. So for instance, like Hancock Seed, Green Cover, Eagle Seed, Real World, they all tend to have really clean seed bags. And here's the emphasis on clean. This is another thing that can burn you. Inert matter. If you look on the back of the bag at the ones you buy at the store, it could say inert matter or weed seeds in there. That means the bag you're purchasing is not a pure bag. You're wasting money. So if it says 1% of it is weed seeds, why would you go out and spend money putting weeds out here that you spray to get rid of? Right? That's just as simple as understanding what you're actually purchasing. The inert matter can range from, let's say I want to use corn as an example. If you go out and buy corn seed, there might be dried up husk in there, chopped up pieces of husk, maybe slivers of the stalk in the bag. That is considered the inert matter. So you're actually purchasing dead corn. So that's why you want to look for bags that are clean, that don't have those labels on them. And by understanding and learning to not only read your plants, but read the bag you're buying, that will help you avoid costly mistakes in your food plotting down the road. So I hope this video helps you. I'm sure there's more I can add to this, but guys, I'm telling you, if you're willing to take the time to learn the plants and how they develop and what can cause things to go in your favor or against you, your food plots are going to make it so much easier for you once these cycles kick in and get established. Then you can start maybe expanding your food plots because you've spent so much time working on these smaller ones that you're like, there's no way I can do a bigger one. And if you learn the plants and put the right ones in, and suddenly your plot is performing so good that you don't have to spend, 60, 70% of the time like you was before working it, you can afford to expand. And it saves you money. So again, guys, I hope this video helps you and you all have a great day. If you like this video, hit that like and subscribe button, and I will bring more content like this to try to help you out as much as I can. You all have a good day.